leading with the AFC Conference champion Cincinnati Bengals as we start to preview the AFC North. So you see their win total there at an even 10. You can use the prop shop parlay calculator to get the best possible odds. I'm not totally into, I'll be honest, I say this with a lot of the team previews, I'm not totally in on win totals. There's certainly some edges that we've found when we've kind of rolled through schedules and things like that. Like, the Rams and the Bucks and the Cowboys come to mind as teams that I do feel like will top their win total. I think we'll see this division be a little bit more competitive. Maybe not so much with the Steelers, although they seem to always find a way to kind of hang around, right? Nobody really counted them in last year, and they hung around. The quarterback play, there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of question marks about the offensive line, but this Cincy team, I think, people saw the rise and eventually, the direction that they were headed. And, maybe they were just, you hear maybe I was in on them a year too early or a year too late. I think people maybe in on them a year too late, right? They were really, really impressive last season. Of course, the Ravens suffered a ton of injuries and they seem to be a little bit more healthy as we get closer to week one. But this is a team, in my opinion, that is the best in the division. I like the offense the best. I think that they've improved the offensive line over the past couple of years, getting Kappa and getting Karras and getting Collins. Like, these are pretty key additions to the offensive line to protect Joe Burrow. I mean, nobody was sacked more than Joe Burrow. I think he was like a record in terms of how many he was sacked throughout the regular season combined with the playoffs. Like, this guy was on his butt all the time. And that was the big question heading into the Super Bowl game. How the heck is Cincy going to be able to, protect him with Von Miller and with Donald? And, eventually that's kind of what happened, right? They kind of got dominated at the offensive line, but they've improved it, especially here through the offseason. They're 12-1 to win the conference. They're plus 190 to win the division. They're plus 280 for a wild card berth, and 22-1 is pretty good odds for a team that just went to the Super Bowl. But of course, it is really, really tough to go back-to-back, and you see last season at 10-7. Just roll through their schedule this year with you guys. I got it here in front of me. So they start the season against Pittsburgh, division opponent at home against the Steelers. I would give them a win there. So we got one. And then in Dallas against the Cowboys, I'd give them a loss, but that one should be a pretty entertaining game. That should be a strong one. And then back home, or actually they're still on the road against the Jets. They'll beat New York, although that game last season was pretty tight. Did the Jets beat them? I don't think so. Did it go to overtime? It went to overtime, I do believe. I'm just thinking about it now on the spot. I mean, I could check. Does it really matter? You guys may not care, but 2021 Jets. They lost to them. That's right. They lost to them 34-31. I knew that game was close. And there were some survivor pools that I think were ripped up that week. But I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they beat the Jets. But clearly, it's not a cakewalk for them. 2-1. Back home to face Miami. I'll give them a win there, 3. I'll give them a loss in Baltimore. I'll give them a win in New Orleans against the Saints. I'll give them a win against the Falcons. I'll give them a loss against Cleveland. That would be week 8. Maybe Deshaun plays. If Watson doesn't play in that game, they should beat Cleveland. But I give them a loss, because maybe like the game in New Orleans won't be a W, or the one at home against Miami. But I'm giving the benefit of the doubt there. But Carolina week 9, there's a win. They go in their bye. They're at Pittsburgh. I'll give them another win. I'll give them a loss at Tennessee. The Titans can surprise some teams, here and there. I know they beat the Titans in the playoffs, but the Titans sometimes just surprise some squads, especially at home. Kansas City, that was a really good game last year, and that's where we saw Joe Burrow really kind of take off. That's when me personally, when I started to believe in the Cincinnati Bengals. At the start of the season, Joe Burrow was coming off the significant knee injury, and in his rookie year, he threw the ball, like the pace of play was up-tempo. He was throwing the ball like 40 times a game. He was well on his way to leading the league in passing attempts, or at least being inside the top 3 in passing attempts. The defense still had some holes. The offensive line was not great. It was like quick throws. And then he went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. And that's where we saw Jamar Chase like go off. I think he had like 200 yards in that game. And it was just a fascinating game. And it's like, okay, wow, Joe Burrow can keep up with this offense. He can keep up with any offense. And that's around the time where they took the training wheels off of Joe Burrow. Because when he came back, there wasn't a lot of reps in the preseason and throughout camp. You remember all the reports of Jamar Chase couldn't catch the football? Remember all that? He couldn't catch the rock. The guy actually fell outside the top 25 at the wide receiver position. I was in Jake Seeley's flex with a lot of sharp minds. I think I got him as like wide receiver 28 in that draft, like 6th round or something, because he couldn't catch, but also he was catching passes from Brendan Allen at practice. Allen was gunning him the rock. It wasn't Joe Burrow. And there's a little bit of rust with the Burrow, and there's a little bit of rust with Jamar Chase, maybe some early rookie season nerves, but clearly the guy can catch the rock. But towards the end of the second half of the season last year, they let Burrow throw, and it was more up tempo, and there was more passing attempts. He was clearly more comfortable with his knee. He was starting to run a little bit, right? Providing some sneaky value on the ground with his legs, which is something that he certainly can do. And I don't think a lot of people view him as a running quarterback. He looks like he's slow when he's running, but man, he can take it. If you give him 10, he'll take it. I mean, he's a really, really smart quarterback. Anyways, back to Kansas City at home. I think they beat the Chiefs again. Cleveland is it's tough to sweep, right? We got to kind of give some splits in here. We'll give Cleveland that one, week 14. So there's loss number 5, loss number 6 against the Bucks. They beat New England. They lose to Buffalo, and maybe they lose to Baltimore. I mean, that week 18 game at home, Baltimore, could be everything on the line. So I got them as 9 wins. I got them as a 9-win team heading into that last game of the season. Maybe it's a W against the Steelers, and they're right there at their total. But if you're looking to get involved in futures, like team futures, I would just have some fun with division, props, or division winners. You can parlay maybe Cincinnati in with the Rams, in with the Bucks, in with the Bills. And I know those 3 teams are heavily favored, but you throw a team like Cincinnati into the mix and you got a 4-leg division parlay, you're looking at 5-1 or 6-1. I think that's more worth your money in there as well. Daily Handles always has the updates. So, since we're inside the division, well, I do appreciate you following all the news for me. Justin Tucker agreed to a 4-year extension with Baltimore for $24 million, highest paid kicker in the NFL. Yeah, no doubt, highest paid kicker in the NFL. It's a team for years that has kind of relied on their defense. They run the rock, and Justin Tucker is a guy that has a lot of game-winning kicks under his resume. But McPherson is the new Tucker, right? How good was that guy? Ice in his veins. He was fantastic last year throughout the regular season and throughout the playoffs. I don't think he missed a kick. This guy was just absolutely gold. So many solid kicks in the playoffs against the Titans. And there was a play where I think he was saying that he was going to walk off, right? We're going to the Super Bowl, boys. It was a game-winning kick that he had. So he was fantastic. I'm not into reaching on kickers, but he's going to be a top 10 kicker this year for sure. And Tucker will go first overall. He'll go first in drafts. He'll be the first kicker off the board, but don't do it, guys. Just don't do it. Some of their weapons. Let's get into some of their fantasy football weapons here. So Joe Burrow, man, look at this, right? I mean, he's going as quarterback 4. It's kind of all over the place. I took this from the last 4 weeks of high stakes leagues. So he is, there really has been anywhere from quarterback 4 to quarterback 8. I got him as a top 6 quarterback. I have Brady and Jalen Hurts inside my top 5. If there's a quarterback that will bust, I kind of think it's Mahomes, but I have a hard time, Allen, Herbert, Brady, Hurts. Actually, I go Allen, Herbert, Mahomes, Brady, Hurts, and then I go in with Joe Burrow. But I mean, this guy is a stud. He's fantastic. Think about what this Bengals team has done over the past couple of years. When they got Burrow, they're the worst team in football. The worst team in football. They set an NFL record to go to the Super Bowl within 2 years of, Burrow did anyways. Burrow, that was a record for a quarterback going first overall to get to the Super Bowl within the first 2 years. And it's unheard of, right? He's the man. He's awesome. And all these weapons are fantastic too. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, right? I think we've talked about Tyler Boyd. You probably don't have the Tyler Boyd board, in file, Tyler, but this is a guy who down the stretch over the last few weeks of the season finished as a top 30 wide receiver. He finished as a top 45 wide receiver, top 40, and he's going as wide receiver 52. He's a really, really good wide receiver. And as I mentioned, Joe Burrow was throwing the rock a little bit more last season towards the end. And that benefited a guy like Tyler Boyd. He's always going to have the soft coverage inside the slot. He's not a game changer on your fantasy squad, but he's really good value to be your wide receiver 5 or 6 on your squad that you can put in when we get to injuries are going to happen, and bye week replacements, things are going to happen in there as well. It's just going to happen. And he's a guy that you can plug in, I think, comfortably as a flex. I don't think there's really any question about that. The 2 guys that you really care about, so I just think, Boyd's terrific value. Hayden Hurts, double tight ends. Sure, we saw some moments from CJ Uzomah. Certainly Burrow can, provide value, I think, for Hayden Hurst there as tight end 24. He could finish as a top 20 tight end, but I wouldn't go inside top 15. And I wouldn't feel comfortable as him as my single tight end in a 10 or 12 team league. But T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, Jamar Chase, finishes as a wide receiver 3. T. Higgins is wide receiver, 17, but he missed 3 games overall. 110 targets for T. Higgins in 14 games and 128 for Jamar Chase. More targets per game for T. Higgins. Like, I just feel like, that gap is probably fair, wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 10, but I personally would not be shocked if T. Higgins had a better fantasy season than Jamar Chase. He's a guy that may get targeted more inside the end zone than Jamar Chase, but Jamar Chase is definitely the better wide receiver. He's more explosive. I think you'll see more screen passes from him. He was among the leaders in targets over 20 plus yards. He took the top off a lot of defenses last year with his speed. I don't know if, I certainly feel like defenses will, they won't play press on him. They'll get the benefit of the doubt. We saw a little bit of that Jalen Ramsey, right? He wasn't playing press on Chase. He was like, I know how quick he is and he could, blow past me. So, I'll line back a little bit. So we could see, some more screens from him, crossing routes, things like that. But both of these guys, I think, are studs. I would draft Justin Jefferson over Jamar Chase. We had the back and forth with Jake Seeley on All in Football. Can be caught on Game Plus Network. He was in on Chase. I'm in on Jefferson. I think there's more targets for Justin Jefferson. He had 167 targets last year. He's the clear-cut number 1. Kevin O'Connell coming over to Minnesota. It's going to be more of a pass-happy offense. I think will benefit guys not only like Jefferson and Thielen, but also Cook, and also because Cook's going to catch some balls out of the backfield, and also like they're going to run some three wide there, but Cook will benefit from that as well, and also KJ Osborne. But give me the guy that I feel will have more targets, is not really competing with the guy like Thielen's great, but Chase and Higgins, these guys could be right on par in terms of targets all year. More higher ceiling with Chase. I think I'd probably rather a running back or a Diggs or an Adams a little bit later on in the first. But I still think Chase will finish as a top 5 wide receiver. But I wouldn't be shocked, like I said, if T. Higgins is a guy that finishes really, really close to him, maybe ahead of him, more targets per game. It's really tough. I think personally, if I'm building my roster, I'm probably going with T. Higgins. Give me T. Higgins the way I'd like to build my roster in the second, maybe early third. Hammer the running back position in the first or the second round, and then move on that way. That's it. The Bengals are really good. All their weapons fantastic. Didn't really touch on Mixon. He's not a bell cow back. Samaje Perine's going to be a guy that catches balls out of the backfield. Got on the field at third down throughout the playoffs. Is going to continue this year. And if he goes away, Evans would, get that role. But, if Mixon got hurt, it would be Samaje Perine to get first and second down reps, not Evans. So if you're looking to handcuff with Mixon, who finished as a top 5 running back last year and is not going as a top 5 running back, you can get him end of first, early second, maybe even running back 9, 10, 11, 12. If you want to handcuff him, it actually is with Perine. It would be Perine and it wouldn't be Evans. But if you're looking for upside and ceiling, you can take Evans in a PPR league. Maybe he can vulture some third down work from Samaje Perine.